to Arts and Entertainment. I'm Deborah Gilbert, your host. Thanks so much for being here today. I greatly appreciate it. I hope that you'll enjoy the show. Well, I have a treat for you. We're going to highlight a comedian that's here in the state of Connecticut. His name is Vincent McElhone. And Vincent, thanks so much for being here today. Greatly appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, Deborah. I'm bored out of my mind, so I'm glad to be doing this.
Okay, well, let's start with that. Why are you bored out of your mind?
Well, we're not getting much work right now as comedians, people in the performance industry, things are tough with the COVID and all, so we've all been very, very frustrated and dying to get out and get back to what we love to do. So anything like this is great.
Well, it's wonderful to have you, and I'm glad. I know that this is a difficult time for you, probably for you and for millions of other people, to probably be very honest. So I'm thankful that you can take some time to be with us today.
I'm glad I could be here.
Well, why don't we take the viewer back? Tell us about yourself. Tell us about your background.
Well, very basically, in a quick way, I started out doing stand-up. I was actually counting the years today because I knew we'd be doing this. So I look back, it's been 28 years since I started. And 28 years ago, I went to an open mic contest in New York City, left Connecticut, got on a train, went to New York, went up to the Upper East Side, and performed my first time at an open mic show. Did a few minutes, bombed terribly, did awful, drove me crazy that I did so poorly. Went back home and said, I got to at least go back and make it decent, what I tried to do. And I've been going back ever since. So that's it, 28-year story. And that's how I got into this. Yep.
Did you know growing up as a young person or into adulthood that you wanted to be a comedian? Was it just a natural part of who you are?
Deborah, it never was. I never thought that way. I never imagined anything as crazy as what I do today. But no, nothing like that. I would say that, I always did impersonations. I'm sure I was looked at as a funny kid, funny in a lot of ways. Some of them not so that I wanted to be, but I was. But I think I always was, yeah, but I never thought this way. I never thought about it for real. And I wasn't class clown in my schools or any of that kind of thing, so. It just all of a sudden came, and a friend of mine, he gave me a little bit of a challenge to go in there and do it. He thought I should be doing it. So I said, hey, what the heck? I went in there and I tried it, and I've been doing it ever since. So.
When you were in New York City and you said you didn't do well and yet you went back and did it some more, did it feel natural for you? Is this something you wanted to pursue?
I did it. The first time I did it, I failed miserably, as I said. Did I feel natural? No, I would say it was the opposite. I felt very unnatural, which was strange for me because I thought it would have been a natural thing, right? I thought it would have been. I've always been in sales my whole career, so to me it was public speaking, and it should have been a natural, and it wasn't. And because it wasn't, it really bothered me. And I said I got to keep going back until I can get comfortable with this thing, at least be able to do it well. So after I did it a number of more times, it became a little more natural, got a little better at it. And about a couple of years down the road, I started getting actually booked to shows professionally and doing clubs around the country. So,
tell me how that happened as you became comfortable. Time started moving on. Did you book your own acts? Did you get an agent? Do you travel the nation? Tell us about your progression.
Well, I'll tell you a quick funny story, Deborah. Here's how it went, okay? It was very difficult to get booked because, there's so many, you do shows, there was so little money involved in it, that kind of thing. I was not being able to get booked. I wasn't getting the right exposure. I wasn't living in New York City where the club action was really happening. I was living here in the shoreline of Connecticut, and there's not much action, right? There's not much opportunity. So you got to look and search and drive and get on trains and do what you had to do to get time. So my exposure level was very difficult. A friend of mine at the time, I was starting out with him doing stand-up. His name is Joe Rogan. He's now a multi-$100 million comedian. And if I can get my parking paid for today, I'd be happy with what I'm doing with you today. So it's very difficult, right? So Rogan and I are doing a show. And Rogan says to me, I said to him, I go, how do you get booked? How does that work, How can I be like you, get an agent to call me and book me? And he looked at me and he said, Rogan looks at me and he says, you know what? You get a good act and they'll come find you. And you know what? It's funny. It's a funny little story in a way, but you know what? It was very, very true. So the better you get, like any other business, the agents will come find you. They see you have something. They see that you can get up there in that stage and hold an audience and bring people in and have some sort of a following. Obviously the agents start calling, you start getting booked. and it's exactly the way it worked for me. So it took a lot of time. I was doing it part-time. I've always done it part-time, and it's tough. I mean, it's a tough road. So, but then I got there, and I've been booked ever since. So it's a tough deal.
Tell me about your show. If you'd like to do
Sure.
a sketch right now, tell me what it's like. What would it be like if I were to see you in person?
Well, if you saw me in person, I'm not going to do a thing right now so much because it's just not a natural thing to me. I'll do it as we go on, as we go through the show, if I might. Okay, but here's how it works. If you went and saw me, you'd see a fairly adult contemporary show. Okay, in other words, my show is hardly a dirty show. It's not anything like that, but it certainly is contemporary. It's certainly adult themed. It's not a Disney program. All right. So you would see me in a nightclub. You would see my act. I perform at casinos, nightclubs, places like that, theaters. I do the Cape Theater here in Old Saybrook. I do the casinos in Connecticut. I do casinos all over, clubs all over the country. So it's not, as I said, it's not a G-rated show, but it's certainly nothing offensive either. So you would see all the topical topics of interest today, including things that are rough topics like COVID. To me, I do an awful lot on the COVID, okay? I would do an awful lot in the political scene, where we just went through with the election. People say, oh, we don't like the politics, it obsesses me. It's the real life. What else we've been doing for the past year and a half, but listening to this crazy political things going on in our country, right? Right now, before the past summer. So that's what I do. I do things that strike me funny. Marriage is funny, okay? Traveling is funny. COVID, believe it or not, I do funny things. COVID is crazy. COVID has to be so crazy right now. I'll give you an idea. COVID is so nuts. People say to me, are you nervous? Are you worried about it? I said, listen, I'm flossing my teeth with gloves still, okay? Look, this is how I live, okay? I'm nervous. I don't like this thing. It scares the living heck out of me. I come out of the shower, the first place I go, to the sink to wash my hands, all right? This is what I do, okay? I do contemporary things that strike me that are funny based on tough subjects, funny subjects, whatever, day-to-day subjects. So that's what I do, Deborah, in a nutshell. All different types of material. How I was raised as a kid. I had a tough Irish Catholic father, how I was raised as a kid. I have my own children, so how I raised them and what they do today, all that stuff, marriage, whatever it may be.
For the viewer who is watching us right now that is pursuing to be a comedian or who would like to be a comedian, what would be some of your advice as to how to get started?
Try to find something else a little more sane for your day-to-day activities, because being a comedian, trying to get into comedy is one tough nut, okay? So I would say this, in all seriousness, if you were to say somebody wanted to get into it, what would I suggest to them? I would suggest, first of all, to start young. If you're a young age, that's the best time to do it, because it takes an awful lot of your time. It builds up your confidence, and you got to get ready for a lot of failure, okay? So I would say this. I would say to get into comedy, what should you be looking at? You should be looking at a lot of nighttime activity away, missing out on a lot of things you normally wouldn't miss out on. Because a lot of the comedy obviously takes place on the weekends. It's Friday, Saturday, it's Thursday nights. And if you're just starting out, it'll even be the weeknights, because you're going to be at open mic nights. You're going to be at comedy shows that are like, the nightly type places and bars and restaurants that host a comedy night per se. It could be a Tuesday or a Wednesday. You got to be going to all of those. You got to be writing. Writing is the key to everything. So you got to not only put your time away, your schedule, your sacrifices, but you got to also be able to write. And the writing is such a key part of comedy. I mean, I don't care what anybody says. It's so key. Writing, how you write the words, and how you deliver the words, how you deliver your ideas, your thoughts, the cadence, and how you do it, the language. Saying a glass of water or saying a water are two different things. It's all about words. It's all about how you write. It's about how you put it together. It's about the chemistry and how you put it together. And then it's, of course, about how you deliver it. So all these things take so much time. So when you're starting out, you just got to put that in your mindset that there's an awful lot of time going to be taken out in order to develop this thing. And you have to have thick skin, obviously, because the failure is common, and the failure's tough. I mean, when you die up there on the stage and you're hustling to go to places and you go do shows and it doesn't go the way you had thought it was going to go, but you better be able to take that because it's a tough thing to swallow. Okay, it's just very, very tough. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I had a certain set that I was going to do in New York City. I was doing Caroline's once in Manhattan. Okay, right there in Times Square. So I get on the train, I get home from working all day. Then I get on the train, I hustle down to the city. The guy there at the club told me I'm going to have 10 minutes. I worked so hard in that little 10 minutes. When you first start out, 10 minutes is a long time. It's a long time in anybody's little thing if you're going to do 10 minutes on stage. Okay, I do 30, 45, whatever today it is, right? But back in the day, I had 10 minutes ready. I had every word written out, crafted perfectly. I get to the club, the guy says, I'm about to go on stage. He goes, by the way, you're only doing 6. I said, I had 10 ready. You told me 2 weeks ago I was going to do 10. He says, that isn't the story anymore. Now you have 6. Go. And you got to go up there and it fouls you up because your head, your brain has written 10 perfectly. And I'm ready to do that 10. But I don't do 10 because I'm only allowed to do 6. So you got to adjust. And with that, you tend to stumble some, okay, because it's confusing and then your timing is off and all that. It's just a difficult process. So I guess my best answer to that is be ready for a lot of learning and be ready for a lot of failing, but be ready to get stronger and get better at it. I mean, it's a hell of an undertaking, to be honest.
Well, you were kind enough to send us some pictures, so why don't we show them right now? And if you would tell us what we're seeing, that would be great.
That's funny. Let me see. I'll take a look at them. See what we got here. This is Jane Condon, who's a tremendous comedian. She's out of Greenwich, Connecticut, and that's Jane and I following a show. I believe that's the Katharine Hepburn Theater, and we had just done a show. That was just a couple of years ago, and that's her and I on stage there. That was a great night. This one here, this is me at, that's Mohegan Sun. It was a Treehouse comedy production show that I did there. I think I was with Dom Irrera, a very famous club act. He's a tremendous guy. Dom Irrera and I at the Mohegan Sun Casino. That's the shot right there. Yeah. This one here, wow, that's a busy shot. Okay, I did send that to you. That's Catch a Rising Star in New York City, in Manhattan. That's probably like late 90s when I did that show there. It's packed house, and that was a great, great club. No longer exists. It closed down a number of years after I did it. I hope I wasn't part of that process as to why it closed, but I can tell you that is a great, great club, and everybody you ever heard of has been to that stage right there at some point. This one here, I don't know where I am here, but it's the Treehouse Comedy Club. That's a Connecticut club, and it was a Connecticut agent that booked me for many years, over 20 years. His name was Brad Axelrod, and I did a lot of shows, like I couldn't count them all, for the Treehouse Comedy Club, and that's just one of the nights that I did for that club. And they were all over the state of Connecticut, Norwalk and Mystic and Milford and Danbury. I don't know which place this was here, but that was a show I was doing somewhere.
Okay, let's hold that thought. I'm Deborah Gilbert.
Sure.
You're tuned in to Arts and Entertainment. We're going to take a break. We'll be right back.
Smart TVs and streaming services have taken over the television industry. VSC TV is proud to announce our presence on Apple TV and Roku to make watching your favorite shows even easier. You can access this service by downloading the Cablecast ScreenWeave app. Then choose Valley Shore Community TV from the list of channels. Select VSC TV Live to watch our channel in full HD. Or pick a show from our on-demand video library. VSC TV is your local Connecticut Midshore Valley digital connection.
Welcome back to Arts and Entertainment. I'm Deborah Gilbert, your host. Again, thanks so much for spending time today with me and my guest. And my guest today is Vincent McElhone. He's a comedian based here in Connecticut. And Vincent, again, thanks for being with us. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Deborah.
Well, let's talk about a perfect world. COVID goes away. You're back on the road. What would you be doing? Where would you be going? What's the next step for you?
Well, I'll tell you what. It's funny we bring that up right now because all of us who are in this comedy world here, we're all trying to figure that exact question out. So I can tell you this. Things are starting to look better for us for getting work and for getting back out there again. During the pandemic, just to tell you this real quick, I did a good number of virtual shows, just like I'm doing here with you. So I did a lot of things from home. I did a lot of corporate shows. I did a show for Middlesex Hospital, okay, for the hospital here locally. I know a lot of great doctors there, and I wanted to do that, and I offered that to the people that run the hospital, and I did a great show for all the workers, for all the frontline workers, okay? So I did things like that, and I did things for a number of nonprofit organizations that needed fundraising. So we did all that. I had a great time, got through it. It's okay. It's not a true live performance the way we want to do it. So the question is, what's next? Well, we're starting to get out there again. The clubs are starting to open. The casinos have been open, but they're doing more and more of the comedy shows. So I have some shows coming up already. I'm going to be at Mohegan. I think I'm going to be there like in May, early May. They're working on a date right now. So they're just starting to book right now. We're just starting to get things going. The clubs, I'm hearing there's going to be an awful lot of shows still outdoors, under a tent setting or something like that. So we're going to be seeing a lot of shows, despite the COVID getting better or us being vaccinated and us having more confidence. We're going to still see the outdoors, taking advantage of the outdoors and all, with the weather coming better. So I don't know. I don't know the answer. I don't know when it'll be normal again, as they say, but I think we're getting out there at least. So things are happening.
You have, I guess you said, about 28 years in this industry. How do you get booked? Do you have an agent, a manager? What do you do to get these new acts?
I have booking agents. I have people that book me from all over. I get people in Connecticut, people in New York City. And those are the main people that are booking me. I get booked in New York from people I know that have been doing that for years. And maybe I get work outside New York. There's people in New York City that have booked me to Vegas. So I've done things out in Tropicana and Las Vegas. And they come from New York, but they've known me for many years. So I got New York City, and I have Connecticut as a Jersey person. Okay. Things like that. So, it isn't the top shelf booking agents that I'm getting. I'm a part-time guy. I make a small living at it. Okay. I do it because I love it. And I do these certain clubs and casinos and the things that I do it because I like doing it. I make a small living at it, but the agents that book me are agents that are booking many, many different people. It's certainly not, it's not the A-list out of Los Angeles, okay? But I have professional people that get me the acts, that get me the bookings, yes.
Is this something that you plan on doing for the rest of your life? Is this something that is part of who you are?
I just turned 60 during the pandemic. I've been doing it for almost 30 years as it is. So for the rest of my life, I would have loved to be able to say yes, because I worked hard as hell doing what I do, and I have a great time doing it. So I would hate like heck to anybody to take that away from me for any reason other than health reasons. But I feel great. I want to do it forever, and I hope so. That'd be my best answer.
You're saying that you do it on a part-time basis. What else keeps you busy?
Well, I'm in the plastics business. I've been in the plastics business for almost 40 years. So I've done the comedy for about 30, and I've done plastics business since I came out of college. So for about 40 years, I've been in the plastics business. I have my own plastics business for the last 17, 18 years. I work for myself. So I represent and I sell for a number of different plastic manufacturers around the country. And that's the funny thing, I could tie that into comedy, because when I first started in comedy almost 30 years ago, I traveled like crazy. I was on planes almost every week, traveling all over the country. And when I would travel, I would get booked. I would go look for bookings at clubs in the cities that I was traveling to. So I've done clubs everywhere you could possibly imagine in the States. I've been everywhere. I've been to Florida, Chicago, San Francisco, Seattle, up to Toronto in Canada. I've been all over New England, New York City, everywhere, Texas, everything you can imagine. I've been there because I sold plastics on the road. And when I would be out selling, rather than going to bed at night like a normal human being, I would go find clubs in the area, get in my car, and go drive to a comedy club and do 3 minutes if they gave it to me, 5 minutes, 10 minutes. I do whatever they would let me to do. Okay, and I go on stage and I do 10 minutes, and I'd be in Oklahoma City. And I do 10 minutes there, and I come off stage, and then I'd go home. The next day I'd wake up, I'd go out on the road and go see customers. So I did that for many, many years. And I did way more comedy doing it that way on the road than I was in Connecticut, because there were so few places to do anyway. So I was always traveling. So I've always been in the plastics business, and I've always liked to put both of those things together. And I've worked with some great, great acts by traveling on the road like that. People like, Dennis Leary and Jim Gaffigan, Joe Rogan, as I mentioned before, Gilbert Gottfried, I've worked a couple of times with. I mean, things like this, just because I'm traveling out there and I get to mix it up with all kinds of people. So it's been a good combination.
One of the things I love discovering about you was your website. Tell us about that.
Well, my website was put together for me a couple of years ago. To be honest, I haven't really utilized it as I should have, because again, I just haven't had the time with all the things I'm doing. But my website, I have a number of those pictures you saw, but I have a lot of my history about how I started. I have a listing of all the names I've worked with, all the clubs I've been, all over the country, the casinos, the connections. Some funny stories are in there. All my contact information. If I was to be booked by someone or someone had an interest, I get booked an awful lot, by the way, for corporate work as well. So I do a lot of company stuff. I do a lot of fundraising events. So a lot of that came through the website, and it's a very nice website done by a company here, a woman I know here in town on the shoreline as well, and she did it for me. So it's pretty good. I haven't made it that interactive. I haven't made it as effective as I should, actually, if I put the time in. But it's worked out to be a good tool. So.
Well, that's a really good question that I was thinking when you were saying it. If we have a viewer that would like to book you, how do they go about finding you?
Call me, offer me lots of money, and I will come to any place you have. No, what would I do? I would just say call me off the website. I have a website. It's stand up. It's Vin McElhone's. I have two websites. I have a plastics website to buy my plastic from me, and I have the comedy. The comedy one is Vin McElhone standup.com. So use that, and I have all my information on there. All my contact info is on the website. So please use that, and you can call me, and my number's on there, my email's on there, everything's there. So it's pretty simple. So.
Tell me some of your memories. What are some of the great shows or great people that you loved working with?
Wow. Well, there's an awful lot of those. I've worked with a lot of great talent over the years. Some of the great stories, I don't really have any, I don't know how great they could be to you out there in the television world there, but I would say this. I know everybody has different people they love, okay? Different acts. I have stories about Jim Gaffigan. Jim Gaffigan is a tremendous act, and everybody out there really knows that name, and he is tremendous. And I started out with him in New York City, and we did a lot of shows together in the city. I mentioned Joe Rogan before. Joe Rogan, people are going to know him from Fear Factor and other shows that he's done, TV shows. But he did little places with me in New York City and right here in Connecticut. I most recently worked right before the pandemic hit with Gilbert Gottfried. And that's a crazy little guy. I'll tell you that right now. There's some funny stuff with him because he is just hilarious, but he's also just a very unique individual. Okay, if you know who he is, of course, the voice that he is. He's done the Disney voices and all the movies that he's done and the TV work, and he's a very unique guy, to say the least. Dennis Leary. I mean, Dennis Leary and I worked together at Caroline's in New York, in Times Square, and Leary is a big TV movie star guy as well, and he's as regular a guy as you could ever get. So Leary was very good. and he was a lot of fun. After the show, we went out and we had some friends of mine and my family were there at the show in Caroline's, and he came around and was very good to everybody and spent some time with us. So, I mean, just things like that. I mean, there's so many different stories I could get into, but a lot of them are crazy, and a lot of them I'll just leave where they are for the moment.
Well, for the viewer that is watching us, do you have some thoughts as to what they should be doing or where they should be going to be able to find you? What's your next step from here?
My next step from here is like a lot of us are doing. We're really trying to figure that out, Deborah, to be honest, because there's so much uncertainty still. I think things are getting more confident with the virus and with the vaccinations and where we're going to be and to getting back to what we continue to call normal. But we're waiting to be led actually by whoever's going to be driving and marketing these shows that we miss doing so much. My guess is stay with my website, VinMcElhoneComedy.com, and I don't know what's going to be happening. I mean, I'm getting word that I'm going to be doing shows. As I said, I'm going to do a casino show coming up at Mohegan in May. I have other shows that are potentially being spoken about, but there's not a lot of things right now that are solid that I have going on. But please use the website and check me out and give me a phone call or give me an email, and I can let you know where I'm going to be and what we could do. And for private work, I'm always open to that as well, you know. So same information on that. Just go to my website, go to my number or email, and I do a lot of work for private organizations and fundraising and corporate work. So any of that would be great.
Well, we have run out of time. I thank you so very much for being here as my guest. I greatly appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Deborah.
You've been tuned into Arts and Entertainment. I'm Deborah Gilbert, your host. Thanks so much for joining me today. Greatly appreciate it. I'll see you next time.